Today we continue our in-depth series on garden design. We'll be taking a close look at one of my favorite topics, selecting the right plant for the right place. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart in Georgia.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs, where every plant is performance tested, leaving you free to just enjoy. Find our award-winning shrubs at your local garden center.
Now more than ever, our homes are our havens, where we learn, love, and live. Let garden projects, inspired or simple, bring beauty and comfort to you. Wherever you choose to plant good, we're with you.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
You have to rely on your gear. The way it feels, the way it does exactly what you need it to do. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes it SUV.
Over the years, we've made many trips to Gibbs Gardens, and for good reasons. With over 220 acres of carefully planned and manicured gardens, there's a lifetime of knowledge in these rolling hills. The unique topography allows for an incredible diversity of plants and a host of microclimates, allowing visitors to experience 16 truly unique gardens in one day. For the past few weeks, we've been following the process of Jim Gibbs' new addition, the Inspiration Garden. He's given us a rare look inside this project, from the early planting stages through its completion. Today we spend the day walking through this garden and discussing the incredible plant collections that make the Inspiration Garden so special. And we learn from the master what goes into selecting the right plants for our gardens. Jim, welcome back to the show. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to see you again.
I'm so excited to see the Inspiration Garden. I've heard a lot about it. We were here earlier when you were just starting the construction process, breaking grounds, working out your pathways. Give us kind of an overview. What was the thought behind this garden, and tell us about just what its personality is.
Well, of course, what we wanted to do is to feature plant collections, and we're on one of the main walks coming in from another garden. And as you walk on this walkway, it's designed to curve to actually sort of let you meander through the garden and look to the right up above you at all the plant collections, the Drift series of roses, which are dwarf, the Encore Azalea collection. Above that you have all the rare Japanese maples, dwarf. You have also the larger Japanese maples, which are the palmatums and the japonicums. And as we walk through here to the left is a steep hillside. We've planted 900 native azaleas on this hillside. Of course, they're all fragrant.
Wow,
in the spring, and of course this collection, some of them bloom in the spring, some in the summer, and some in the fall. And so that works its way down into the existing ferndale, which was native to the site. We're introducing over here to your right some of the dwarf junipers, because we're getting ready to approach the conifer garden. So as we approach the conifer garden, we will be building in 2 weeks the viewing deck right out in front of us, and it's luring us to that space because we should be able to see it. And we have benches there to rest and really take a moment, take in the garden, but to stand there and overlook the entire conifer garden and all of the collections as they meander and wind around this walkway.
I love the thoughtfulness of your garden design, Jim. I think one of the hallmarks of great design is creating these little surprises around every corner. And as we were walking up here, you feel this great sense of excitement, like I can't wait to see what's around the corner, and these beautiful vistas, and just an amazing way of framing these collections that it invites the gardener to spend time. You're gonna have to take the time that it takes to work around every single corner because you don't want to miss anything.
You need some real strong curves in a walk, and you can't see around the curve because your sight line takes you to the curve. Then beyond that, you'll see another curve in the distance, and that makes another exciting space, as you mentioned. From the next curve from that curve to the next creates another exciting space to walk and view the garden. Now, we're getting ready to build a gazebo up there on top of the hill. Everything is leading to the gazebo. You see it in the distance, and all the walkways are following the contours of the land to meander and take you to the top to overview the entire garden. So once that's constructed, which they'll start construction in 2 weeks, once it's built, you're going to still work toward the viewing decks to be able to sit and rest a few minutes on the benches, or you're on your way to finally the destination would be to arrive at that gazebo and see what's up there. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, the plant collections here are so exciting, and you've put a lot of work into that. Let's dive into the plants, Jim. Jim, probably the backbone of this garden is this amazing collection of dwarf conifers, and it's really what sets this space off. We feel like we're now in a completely new and unusual space, and you're very passionate about conifers. But why the dwarf conifers for this garden?
Well, of course, the dwarf conifers are evergreen. They're 4-season plants, especially in the winter when all the leaves drop. You could come here in the winter and see just the conifer garden and enjoy your visit. Sure. It would be worth a visit to see just the conifers in the wintertime. When you're designing with conifers, we want the evergreen interest, but we also want to think about the varying forms, the textures, and the colors of the conifers, because when you mix all those plants up and plant them in a big space like this, it's 1.5 acres for the conifer garden. So we have over 200 varieties, wow, named cultivars, that of course are covering these hillsides of nothing but dwarf conifers. Now, I wanted to feature the dwarf conifers because I have the taller conifers like Dawn redwoods and ball cypress, all those plants that grow 60, 80, 100 feet tall, planted in the lower Japanese gardens, the water gardens, and places down there, so they're in other collections. So this is strictly dwarf conifers, but you want to select 4 to 6 plants and work, whether it's a sun location, you get full sun in this garden in one area. In another area, it's part sun. Full sun is 6 hours or more per day. Part sun is 4 to 6 hours of sun, and part shade is usually 4 to 6 hours of filtered high shade areas. So we have all three. So we had to select the plants that would grow in each of those areas. You also want to select the plants that are going to grow in zone 7 and 8 because that's my zone.
Right.
Now, I don't have to worry about them freezing because they'll go to temperatures of minus 20, 30 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, so we don't have freeze problems. But we worry about the summer heat. Right. So I had to make sure I came up with a selection of plants that would tolerate zone 7 and 8 summer heat more. So all of these plants, you can see the varying colors of greens. We have all different shades of green and chartreuse green, which adds lots of excitement here and there, and you have to scatter them so that you see it all around. We have the grays in the plant colors. We have the blue grays, which are great mixing with them. So we have all these various colors, and even in the winter, those colors are evident and you see them. And then, of course, we designed the dry stream that flows through the valley, and the hillside goes down. You're overlooking the conifers, or you're looking up at them on the other side. So you have a view over the tops or from below looking up. So the space in itself, the topography, lends itself to a wonderful dwarf conifer collection. We also have much lower maintenance on pruning. You hardly ever have to prune them because we planted them for their shape and, of course, for their form and for their texture and color.
So I love collector's gardens or specimen gardens for the plant geek in me. But many of those gardens, they're not the most aesthetically beautiful thing. It's a collection of different plants, and it's wonderful from a plant ID standpoint or learning what they look like. But you've accomplished both. So we've got this amazing collection of hundreds of dwarf conifers, but it's also aesthetically beautiful to look at, and you've done a wonderful job just in the composition of this garden.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Jim, one thing I've also noticed in the conifer garden, it's one of my favorite garden plants, and that's dwarf ginkgo. And what many people may not know is that ginkgos are, of course, gymnosperms, and so they're related to all of the conifers that we have in the garden, and it makes it a wonderful companion. And also, there's no beating the fall color of ginkgos. That against the blue foliage of spruce and and other chartreuse pops in the garden. It's a wonderful companion plant and actually belongs with this family.
I don't know if you knew, you probably do, you're quite a horticulturist, but they have actually found in the 200 million year old fossils in China, the ginkgo leaf. And you know, it's a beautiful leaf. It's fan shaped, and the color, that bright yellow in the fall of the year, it turns a golden yellow, is fabulous. But ginkgos just date back prehistoric times. I mean, it's unbelievable. But also, now Brent Marcus has quite a collection of dwarf conifers, but he also has quite a collection of dwarf ginkgos. So every dwarf ginkgo that he grows, I bought one of every cultivar variety and have spaced those all out through the conifer garden. Now another plant that's a companion plant for conifers that's great, and I bought the rare collection from Brent Marcus. He owns a Rare Trees nursery, which is out of Portland, Oregon. But he has all of these rare dwarf Japanese cutleaf maples, and they're great companion plants for all the conifers. So you mix the dwarf ginkgo collection, the dwarf collection of dwarf Japanese cutleaf maples, and the conifers, and you create a lot more interest because you have the fall color of those plants added to the evergreens. So that makes a much nicer conifer garden.
Absolutely. This would be a brilliant year-round garden even without those being tossed in. But you were talking about the importance of color, texture, structure, form, all of that. And these are just natural companions that we can imagine in nature. They would all be growing together anyway. Of course they work together, and it just adds that much more interest. Beautiful focal points. So we're adding in like some of the burgundies and the reds from the Japanese maples, the bright yellow fall color of the ginkgo, and that splashed against these amazing evergreens. It's a symphony. Another meaningful collection that's in this garden, and in some of the higher elevations, more of like a woodland garden, is this great collection of azaleas. And it's one thing that I love. I love looking at these collections and being able to walk through the paths and really get to know the plants. And sometimes the best way to get to know the plants is by being able to contrast them with other cultivars that are similar. So not every lavender plant is the same hue of lavender, or reds or whites when they're in bloom. And you have this impressive collection of Encore Azaleas. I don't know that I've been in a garden that has featured every single Encore Azalea. It's what an amazing and multi-purpose plant it is, full multiple seasons of bloom. And I think this is going to be a really exciting collection over the years just to see how it develops. I can only imagine what this hillside is going to look like when it comes back into bloom.
Well, Eric, we have over 1,200 Encore Azaleas. Now they're planted according to the color wheel for their colors in groups. Most of them have at least 15 in a group next to the dwarf one. You have the dwarf groups and the intermediate groups. Dwarfs more near the walkways, the intermediates which are taller behind them. So we had to think about the colors and color coordinate them, which we did. But We have all 33 varieties, but
Wow.
we even have 3 of the older varieties, so a total of 36 varieties, but they're only selling, I think now, 33 varieties. And we have all of the collection. So as you walk through, and as you know, the Encore Azaleas are great because they will bloom spring, summer, and fall. You have heavier blooms on some in the spring and fall, but the summer ones sort of bloom in between. But the greatest thing about them, they can take more sun.
Right.
Oh yeah, they can take full sun. So an Encore Azalea planted in Mobile, Alabama, I've been there, where they're out in a median, but they do get irrigation, you have to have that. But they're out there in the full sun and they're doing great. In fact, they thrive better. So you want to look at the varieties and know that there are some azaleas that don't have to have filtered sun. Now we also have collections that'll be added in with these that we'll plant next, of collections of the Kurumi azaleas that bloom earlier in the spring, followed by the indica azaleas that bloom after the Kurumis, followed by the Glendale azaleas that would bloom after that, and then following that would be all the Satsuki azaleas that will take the summer heat of June, July, because they have a thicker petal, you know, on the bloom itself. It's thicker and it can take the heat. So all these collections you see keep the color coming from early spring all the way through to the end of fall. These azaleas, for example, are Encore, still blooming, and here we are November the 3rd, and we still have these in bloom. So you have a scattering of flowers there. These are actually budded with more blooms coming, so they'll bloom right up until a heavy, heavy frost.
Wow.
So you have a lot of advantage in using collections of azaleas, and this garden is large, so I can feature large collections.
And as far as flower power goes, the Encore line is so versatile and it's so impactful. For me as a gardener, there's always been something so nostalgic, especially in the Southeast, about azaleas. It's hard to imagine a garden without one, and that's why this collection really, really excites me. You also have planted a lot of native azaleas too, which is a wonderful, fragrant, beautiful garden plant.
We have planted over 1,800 native azaleas. We have over 100 varieties, name cultivars. We also have the native azaleas that'll bloom in the spring that are all fragrant. We have some that bloom in the summer, and we have some that bloom in the fall of the year. So we have so many varieties with over 100 of those. Now the native azaleas, what's great, you want to put them more in the background because they lose their leaves in the winter. These are evergreen. So up there following these contours are the native azaleas following the same contours, and they're all up there behind the knockout roses, which is another collection that blooms spring, summer, and fall, but they're going to drop their leaves. So the evergreens are closer to the walkways, as are the conifers, which are closer to the walkways. So you want to think about the garden in the wintertime. It's more important to put the evergreens near the edges of the walkway and put those, because we have up above the collection of rare dwarf Japanese maples. Also, we have the Acer palmatum and the Acer japonicum that we planted 15, 20 years ago. All that background are those plants that are going to be coming into fall color. So they will be in color for a couple, 2, 3 weeks. So you want to think about your color in planting the garden.
Roses are the queens of the garden. Of course, they're revered for their vibrant colors and oftentimes their fragrance. And there's been tremendous work that's been done in the world of new rose cultivars that's made them, I think, a lot more accessible to the landscape and to the gardener. And I love the way that you've used them here, Jim. They're planted in drifts as opposed to as individual specimens like we might see in a rose garden. And you've done a masterful job of softening the lines of your pathway, and having them, follow these natural curves. And I think it's going to be a wonderful way of experiencing these roses throughout the season as they're in bloom.
Everyone loves roses because, like you said, you've got the flowers that are beautiful, you have the fragrance, which is wonderful. And what we have done is to feature the series, for example, All the drift roses in the drift series are planted here, and they're dwarf roses, which means you only prune them one time in the spring. I cut them way back, and I don't do any more pruning the entire year. I don't have to spray them. They're maintenance free, no pruning. The only time we prune is early spring before that new growth comes out. And you can see here, all of the series are planted, like you said, in groups of maybe 3 of one color to harmonize with 3 of another color that complement that color, and then you go with a different color, groups of 3. We always plant the roses in groups of 3 or groups of 5, and even though the contour is long, the colors blend side by side, and that's important. Same thing up above, we have the knockout roses, and we have all of that series with all of those colors. We only prune them one time, but you want to plant them far enough apart because from spring through summer to fall, you don't want to get disease in there, the black spot fungus, and if you space them about 5 feet apart, you're going to have airflow, and with that airflow, you don't have any problems with them. If you plant them too close, you don't have good airflow, and you have a lot of fungus problems. So we recommend on the knockout roses 5 feet on center, and on the drift series, you come down to 3 feet on center because they're dwarf, and you plant them that way. But they're very low maintenance. Tea roses are beautiful, but they really have one big splash in the spring. High maintenance, very, very high. So think about the maintenance of roses, and I'm so glad they came up with the drift series of dwarf roses and the knockout series of the more intermediate roses, because it adds color, spring, summer, and fall, and creates a lot of interest in a garden that's very much needed. And everybody loves roses.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, it's revolutionized the way that roses are able to be used. Roses were basically just, a garden plant that tended to be fussy, but now with the drift and the knockout series, it's kind of blown the doors off the way we think about roses in the landscape, because for the first time ever, we're able to use them in large groupings, in drifts, and in landscapes that may not, get the correct irrigation, fertility, so on and so forth. And they have proven to be shockingly resistant to powdery mildew and black spot. So it really is a meaningful upgrade, if you will, in a plant that we all adore.
Very, very low maintenance.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, once again, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We always learn so much when we're with you, and I can't wait to see you again.
Thanks, Eric. We appreciate you coming.
Indeed. Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs, where every plant is performance tested, leaving you free to just enjoy. Find our award-winning shrubs at your local garden center.
Now more than ever, our homes are our havens, where we learn, love, and live. Let garden projects, inspired or simple, bring beauty and comfort to you. Wherever you choose to plant good, we're with you.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
You have to rely on your gear. The way it feels, the way it does exactly what you need it to do. The Ep5, how Jaguar makes an SUV.
There certainly was a lot we learned today, and there's much more to come. We return to Gibbs Gardens next week to take a close look at the exciting plants that makes this garden so unique. If If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great gardening tips and ideas as we garden smart.